In everyone's life, there comes a moment when they reflect on the importance of self-love. It is not merely a fashionable term or an unattainable dream, but the cornerstone upon which a happy and fulfilling life, harmonious relationships, and personal well-being are built. However, for many, the concept of self-love seems ethereal, shrouded in myths of narcissism and egoism. It is time to dispel these misconceptions and delve into the depths of the psychology of self-love to understand how to heal emotional wounds and strengthen self-esteem through effective and proven methods. As Louise Hay, a prominent expert in personal growth, stated, "Our beliefs and thoughts shape our reality." This is especially true when it comes to our self-perception. If a critical voice constantly echoes within us, judging and belittling us, the world around us will reflect this insecurity in many ways. But if we learn to treat ourselves with love, patience, and respect, our self-esteem will flourish, paving the way for a fulfilling and happy life. From early childhood, we absorb beliefs about our worth through experiences and the words of those around us. If love and recognition in childhood depended on our successes, we become accustomed to measuring our value by external achievements. If we were constantly criticized, we might internalize the idea that we will never be good enough. These ingrained patterns of thinking can subtly undermine our self-esteem, even if we are not aware of it. But do not despair, because like any other habit, these limiting beliefs can be changed and replaced with those that will support and inspire us. The process of restoring self-esteem is not a sprint, but rather a marathon, requiring time, patience, and perseverance. It is not simply repeating affirmations in front of a mirror, but a profound transformation of our relationship with ourselves. This requires effective strategies that will help heal emotional wounds, form a new, positive internal narrative, and learn to treat ourselves with the same compassion that we show to our loved ones. An exciting journey to yourself awaits you, which will change your life forever. But first, let's figure out where to start this path. Self-awareness stands as the cornerstone in the foundation of self-love. After all, it is impossible to change what goes unnoticed. Observing one's inner dialogue is a task of paramount importance. Try to realize how often during the day you address yourself with severity, impatience, or even contempt. How often do you subject yourself to harsh criticism for mistakes made? How often do you compare yourself to others, concluding your own inadequacy? These questions are not intended to induce guilt, but rather to open your eyes to the nature of your attitude towards yourself. Only by realizing these persistent patterns of behavior can you begin to transform them. Another important aspect is the ability to set personal boundaries. Self-love manifests not only in how you talk to yourself, but also in how you allow others to treat you. Often we say yes in situations when we want to say no, endure discomfort out of fear of being rejected, or take on overwhelming responsibilities because of feelings of inadequacy. However, each time we neglect our own needs to please others, we send a signal to our subconscious: my well-being does not matter. And if we ourselves do not value our own well-being, how can we expect it from others? The process of healing self-esteem is inextricably linked to forgiving yourself. In each of our lives, there have been mistakes, decisions we regret, and periods of failure. However, endless regret about the past will not bring any changes. Self-compassion is a manifestation of true courage. It implies an honest look at oneself, accepting responsibility for one's actions, and granting oneself the right to move on. Louise Hay rightly stated that love is a great healing power, and there is no love more powerful than the love we allow ourselves to feel for ourselves, even when we consider ourselves unworthy of it. Ask yourself, would you talk to your best friend the way you talk to yourself? would they stay with you after that? Often we act as our own harshest critics, demand perfection from ourselves, and severely punish ourselves for the slightest flaws. But self-love is not striving for perfection, but accepting oneself in the process of becoming, with all the virtues and flaws, strengths and weaknesses. It is about building a relationship based on respect, care, and love with the only person who will be with you throughout your life, yourself. Self-love also manifests in how we take care of ourselves, both physically and emotionally. The concept of consumption is not limited to just the food we eat, but also includes the ideas, emotions, and experiences that we choose to integrate into our lives. If we surround ourselves with people who constantly criticize, judge, or belittle us, our self-esteem will inevitably suffer. If we spend hours on social media, comparing ourselves to unrealistic images and unattainable standards, our sense of self-worth will also be damaged. Just as caring for our body means choosing foods that nourish us, caring for our mind and spirit means surrounding ourselves with influences that inspire, support, and promote our growth. An important aspect on the path to self-love is the ability to recognize our achievements. Often we are so absorbed in striving for new heights that we underestimate or completely ignore the journey we have already traveled. Celebrating even the most modest victories strengthens our self-confidence and fosters a positive mindset. It is important not to seek external approval, but to celebrate our successes independently. Every step on the path of personal growth, every challenge and fear overcome, every choice in favor of love rather than fear, strengthens our self-esteem. It is equally important to be able to manage our emotions. It is a common misconception that self-love is about constantly being in a good mood. However, it actually involves accepting the full spectrum of emotions without judgment. Sadness, anger, disappointment, and anxiety are an integral part of the human experience, and suppressing them only exacerbates suffering in the long term. Louise Hay emphasized how important it is to recognize and release suppressed emotions so that they do not become an obstacle on our path. Keeping a feelings diary, having a heart-to-heart conversation, or simply allowing ourselves to experience emotions without resistance can have a healing effect. Self-care is another cornerstone in the foundation of healthy self-esteem. Often we fall into a vicious cycle of exhaustion, giving ourselves to others at the expense of our own needs. We consider rest a luxury, and self-care a manifestation of selfishness, forgetting that it is a vital necessity. Caring for our body, which includes adequate rest, a balanced diet, and physical exercise, is not a whim, but a manifestation of respect for ourselves. Time devoted to activities that bring joy and peace, whether it's reading, music, art, or nature walks, strengthens our self-love, reminding us that we deserve to enjoy life. The practice of gratitude can transform our attitude toward ourselves. By focusing on what we have instead of what we lack, we change our mental state. Gratitude allows us to see beauty in everyday life and appreciate the very fact of our existence. Gratitude to our body for its capabilities, to our mind for its ability to learn and adapt, to our emotions for guiding us. This is a manifestation of deep love. It is not about ignoring difficulties, but about recognizing that even in the darkest of times, there is always something to be grateful for. Finally, let's talk about the power of forgiveness. First and foremost, forgiving ourselves. Louise Hay argued that resentment and guilt are the most destructive emotions for self-esteem. By clinging to the past, we relive pain over and over again, hindering our own healing. Forgiving ourselves for mistakes and decisions that we would like to change is a priceless gift that sets us free. It is not about justifying our wrongdoings, but about understanding that we acted in the best way possible, based on the level of awareness we had at that time. Think about how often you mentally punish yourself for actions committed many years ago. How often do you replay mistakes in your head, as if it could change the past? Self-love involves learning from experience, not being imprisoned by it. It means letting go of what no longer serves us and moving forward with compassion and love for ourselves. On the thorny path to self-love, rethinking the stories that shape our perception of ourselves is of particular importance. From our earliest years, we absorb ideas about our essence, the limits of our capabilities, and the expectations of others. Perhaps in childhood, we were told about our excessive sensitivity, excessive modesty, excessive ambition, or lack of competence. Over time, these imposed labels become ingrained in our minds, turning into unshakable truths and defining our behavior in the world. But how often do we stop to question these long-held beliefs? Self-love calls on us to rewrite our story, consciously choosing the words with which we characterize ourselves. We are not obliged to meet other people's expectations. We are not held hostage by past mistakes or insecurities that once made us doubt ourselves. We are beings in continuous development, capable of self-determination and choosing a more authentic version of our identity. Clinging to a rigid image of ourselves based on past experiences dooms us to repeat old mistakes. However, allowing ourselves to change and grow unlocks new perspectives and opportunities. An equally important aspect in cultivating self-love is the language we use in communicating not only with others, but primarily with ourselves. Words possess incredible power, capable of shaping our thinking and perception of reality. If we constantly tell ourselves that we are worthless, undeserving of love, or incapable of achieving what we desire, these statements inevitably become self-fulfilling prophecies. Louise Hay, a renowned psychologist and author, often spoke about the power of positive affirmations, viewing them not as a magical cure-all, but as an effective way to train our minds to treat ourselves with kindness and respect. Saying phrases aloud such as, "I am valuable," "I am worthy of love," "I accept myself as I am," may initially feel uncomfortable, especially if we have believed the opposite for years. However, over time, these words begin to penetrate our subconscious, displacing the negative beliefs that we have cultivated within ourselves for so long. This is not about denying our weaknesses or creating an illusion of well-being, but about consciously choosing a positive discourse that strengthens our self-confidence rather than undermining it. Equally significant for developing a healthy self-esteem is our attitude towards failures. The fear of stumbling, being judged, or not meeting our own expectations often prevents us from stepping outside our comfort zone. However, failure is not an adversary, but a valuable mentor. Each mistake made opens up new horizons of self-discovery, reveals our strengths, and points out areas that need improvement. By learning to perceive failures as an integral part of personal growth, rather than as evidence of our inadequacy, we free ourselves from the heavy burden of self-criticism and allow ourselves to explore the world with greater freedom. Self-love also implies a patient attitude towards our own development. Modern culture glorifies productivity and instant success, instilling in us the belief that we should achieve everything immediately. However, the path of personal growth is far from a straight line. Days filled with strength and confidence are replaced by moments of doubt. Periods of advancement are followed by times of apparent regression, and this is perfectly normal. It's important to remember that even the smallest step, matters. Even in those moments when it seems like we are standing still, we continue to learn and grow. Recognizing that self-love does not mean sailing solo is also of immense importance. Often we fall into the trap of believing that independence lies in not needing support, and that asking for help is a sign of weakness. But the truth is that each of us needs a reliable support network, people who remind us of our value in moments when we ourselves forget. Whether it's friends, family, therapists, or personal growth groups, surrounding ourselves with people who nourish us emotionally is an expression of self-love. As we advance on the path of self-discovery, it is important to practice non-attachment. Often we cling to relationships, situations, or thoughts that cause us pain, simply because we are accustomed to them. However, by clinging to what drains us emotionally, we hinder our own growth. Learning to let go of what no longer benefits us, restricts us, or harms us is an act of respect for our own well-being. This process will not be easy, but each time we prioritize our own well-being over the comfort of the familiar, we strengthen our self-esteem and open ourselves up to new opportunities. Another cornerstone in the foundation of self-love is unwavering respect for personal boundaries. Often, driven by a false sense of duty, we unconditionally agree to all requests, strive to meet others' expectations, or sacrifice our own well-being to please those around us. Such behavior inevitably leads to physical and emotional exhaustion, steadily undermining our self-esteem. Learning to say a firm no is a manifestation of true self-love. It is not an expression of selfishness or disregard for the needs of others, but a recognition that we cannot give our best if we are constantly in a state of overload. Clearly defined boundaries serve as a reliable protection for our energy and strengthen the awareness that our well-being is a priority, not subject to doubt. Initially, this may seem like a difficult task, especially if we have ingrained the habit of putting the interests of others above our own. But over time, the understanding comes that people who truly value us will respect our decisions. We do not need to apologize for every no we utter or feel guilty for taking care of ourselves. Our peace of mind is a sacred responsibility that we should not shift onto the shoulders of others. Self-love also implies unconditional acceptance of our authentic selves, without fear of judgment. Throughout our lives, we have been taught to adapt, fit in, and conform to certain social standards in order to earn recognition. But what happens when these expectations conflict with our true nature? Many people live imprisoned by roles that are foreign to them, out of fear of being rejected. But self-love flourishes when we give ourselves the right to be who we really are, without masks or false filters. Accepting our individuality is honoring our tastes, values, and passions, even if they are not universally popular or understood. It means expressing ourselves sincerely, without fear of disapproval. When we stop seeking confirmation of our worth in the external world and begin to affirm ourselves, we experience an unparalleled sense of freedom. We do not need universal approval to feel worthy. Our worth does not depend on the opinions of others. As our self-esteem strengthens, it is equally important to develop emotional resilience. Life is full of challenges, losses, and moments of uncertainty, but our ability to cope with them is largely determined by our attitude towards ourselves. When our self-esteem is strong, we do not crumble under the pressure of adversity, but we learn from every experience and find the strength to move forward. Resilience is formed when we stop perceiving obstacles as failures and begin to see them as opportunities for growth and learning. Each challenge we face allows us to better understand ourselves, unlock our potential for adaptation, and strengthen our confidence in our own abilities. It is not about ignoring pain or difficulties, but about remembering that within us are the resources to overcome any situation. Self-care is another important pillar of self-love. Often we show touching concern for the well-being of others, but at the same time, neglect our own needs. Listening to our inner needs, acknowledging our feelings, and giving ourselves space to experience them is crucial for strengthening our self-esteem. We should not belittle our experiences or compare them to the experiences of others. Every feeling we experience is genuine and deserves careful and compassionate treatment. An equally important element of self-care is the ability to avoid excessive self-criticism, which, like a shadow, lurks behind each of us. How easily we fall into the trap of harsh judgments, scolding ourselves for the slightest mistakes, or making excessive demands on ourselves, as if forgetting about human nature, prone to errors. But as soon as we change the tone of the internal dialogue, filling it with kindness and understanding, our relationship with our own self is transformed. Instead of the usual reproaches, "I'm not good enough," or "I always ruin everything," let's try replacing them with words of support and sympathy. "I'm learning. I'm doing everything I can. I deserve love and respect." When we become our own reliable support, and not a ruthless critic, our self-esteem flourishes. We gain confidence in our own decisions, peace of mind on our life path, and open ourselves up to new, exciting opportunities. Self-love is inextricably linked to the pursuit of personal growth, with the realization that we are not obliged to remain the same as we were yesterday. The version of ourselves today should not be immutable in a year, 5 years, or a decade. Sometimes we cling to an established image of ourselves, fearing change, fearing losing touch with the past, or losing a sense of stability. But true stability lies not in a frozen state, but in faith in our ability to adapt, develop, and expand horizons. Personal growth is not a straight road to the finish line, but a fascinating journey full of discoveries and unexpected turns. It is a search for new ways of perceiving the world, exploring our own passions, courage in exploring the unknown, even if there are failures along the way. By allowing ourselves to evolve, we confirm our worth, our need for a full and rich life. How often do we stop halfway, convincing ourselves that it is too late to change anything, start from scratch, or go after a dream? But self-love suggests that every moment is ideal for rethinking ourselves, looking at the world with different eyes, and taking a step towards new opportunities. Another cornerstone in the foundation of healthy self-esteem is the ability to let go of the need for total control. When we strive to keep everything under control, we fall into the trap of rigid expectations and experience disappointment when events do not unfold according to our scenario. But life is unpredictable, and true security lies not in controlling every detail, but in trusting your ability to handle any challenge. Letting go of control doesn't mean being passive or resigned, but learning to go with the flow of life, accepting the inevitability of moments when we won't have answers to all the questions. It means developing trust in the process, confidence that even in the most difficult situations, opportunities for growth and learning can be found. Equally important is the principle of feeling one's own worth. Often we are constrained by prejudices that make us doubt our right to love, triumph, or joy. Perhaps in our early years, we were instilled with the belief that recognition must be earned through back-breaking labor, or that any good fortune will sooner or later have to be paid for. These false beliefs undermine our development, causing us to miss favorable opportunities or settle for less than we deserve. Self-love is a constant reminder that we are worthy of all the good things life has to offer. We don't need to justify our existence or prove our worth to anyone. This is not a manifestation of selfishness or arrogance, but simply a recognition of our own value and allowing ourselves to accept good things with gratitude, and without guilt. Our self-esteem is directly related to how we react to criticism. Excessive dependence on the approval of others turns any critical remark into a personal insult. However, healthy self-esteem allows us to distinguish constructive criticism from malicious attacks. We can learn from the opinions of others without allowing them to affect our self-perception. Instead of fearing criticism, we should see it as an opportunity for self-analysis. Ask yourself, can this remark help me become better? If the answer is yes, accept the useful information and move on. If the criticism is unfair or comes from someone unfamiliar with your situation, simply let it go, without allowing it to undermine your self-confidence. Self-love implies the ability to find joy in each day without feeling remorse. Often we set a condition for ourselves. The right to rest, entertainment, and simple pleasures must be earned. We exhaust ourselves with excessive work, place excessive demands on ourselves, mistakenly believing that our value is determined solely by productivity. But rest, enjoying life, and joy are not prizes awarded for achievements. They are essential needs of every human. By allowing ourselves to enjoy life without guilt, we emphasize the importance of our own happiness. We affirm the idea that there is no need to live in constant tension to earn the right to moments of joy. Life is not just a list of tasks that need to be completed, but a priceless treasure trove of moments that we can savor if we give ourselves such permission. Self-love is inextricably linked to our attitude toward time. In our age, when everything around us pushes us to increase the pace, to try to do more, to use every second productively, we often forget the most important thing, the right to live at our own pace. Appreciating your time is a manifestation of respect for yourself. It means allowing yourself to move on your own path, without looking at others, without feeling inferior because you have not reached certain milestones by a certain time. Each person has their own unique path, their own speed of development, and no external pressure should determine the direction of our lives. Do not forget that a break is not a waste of precious minutes. In the modern world, where everyone is obsessed with performance, it seems an unaffordable luxury to simply stop and savor the beauty of the present moment. However, relaxation is the cornerstone of well-being, affecting not only physical condition, but also mental and emotional balance. A person is not a soulless mechanism programmed for continuous movement. We are beings endowed with needs, feelings, and subject to natural energy cycles. Another aspect of self-love lies in our attitude to the past. Behind each of us is a trail of past experiences that have left an indelible mark. Some memories cause pain, while others offer valuable lessons. Sometimes we, without realizing it, hold on to old wounds, allowing them to shape our self-awareness. We repeatedly scroll through stories of failures, rejections, losses, and these narratives turn into a prison that shackles our development. But the past has power over us only to the extent that we allow it. Each new day gives us a chance to rewrite our story, to discard everything that no longer brings benefit, and to accept an updated version of ourselves. We cannot change the course of events, but we are free to choose how they affect us. Instead of perceiving the past as a heavy burden, it can be seen as a source of strength, fertile ground on which we grew and learned about life. Forgiveness plays a key role in this process, not only of others, but also of oneself. We have all made mistakes, made rash decisions, said or done things we later regretted. However, endless self-flagellation for past misdeeds does not contribute to moving forward. Self-compassion allows you to accept your shortcomings without wallowing in guilt. Acquiring the skill of benevolent inner dialogue is a cornerstone in the foundation of healthy self-esteem. Often we act as our own harshest critics, ruthlessly condemning ourselves for the slightest mistakes, constantly comparing ourselves to others, and making excessive demands on our own achievements. But what happens if we change our approach and begin to treat ourselves with the same warmth and care that we show to loved ones? Instead of self-deprecating phrases like, "I'm not good enough," we could say to ourselves, "I'm doing my best." Instead of the pessimistic belief, "I'm always haunted by failures," we could remind ourselves that every mistake is a valuable lesson and a step towards growth. The transformation of inner dialogue can radically change our perception of ourselves and the world around us, as well as our emotional reactions. Moreover, self-love involves the ability to notice and appreciate even the smallest victories. Often we are so focused on our shortcomings that we forget about the successes we have already achieved. We tend to downplay our achievements as if they are not significant enough. However, every step forward, every obstacle overcome, deserves recognition and encouragement. Whether it's a major achievement or a small victory over oneself, such as overcoming fear, setting personal boundaries, mastering a new skill, or simply showing courage on a difficult day, all of this should be noted as an important contribution to our development. By recognizing our merits, we strengthen our belief in our own strength, realize our value, and confirm our worthiness of love and respect. Self-love is closely related to the quality of our interpersonal relationships. Each person with whom we interact has an impact on our self-esteem, both positive and negative. Therefore, it is crucial to surround ourselves with people who support us, inspire us to develop, and respect our individuality, rather than those who constantly criticize, belittle our merits, or make us doubt ourselves. The ability to recognize toxic relationships is an important skill necessary to protect our emotional health. Sometimes we stubbornly hold on to relationships that cause us pain, out of fear of loneliness, or because of the belief that we must tolerate certain forms of behavior out of a sense of duty or habit. However, self-love teaches us that we should not settle for less than we deserve. Healthy relationships are relationships in which we feel free and comfortable, can be ourselves, in which there is mutual respect, and in which love is not conditioned by obedience or a desire to please. The decision to distance ourselves from people who harm us is not a manifestation of selfishness, but an act of respect for ourselves. This does not mean that we should harbor resentment or wish someone harm, but only that we should put our well-being first. We cannot change other people, but we can choose what environment we want to create for ourselves and what energy we allow into our lives. Self-love is manifested not only in our attitude towards others, but also in our ability to accept love directed towards us. Often, without realizing it, we shut ourselves off from the possibility of being truly loved, subconsciously considering ourselves unworthy of this feeling. Perhaps the roots of this problem go back to childhood, when we learned that affection must be earned at the cost of sacrifice or perfection. And when someone offers us love without any conditions, we experience difficulties, not knowing how to accept it. To accept love means to expose your vulnerability, to allow yourself to be seen in all fullness, with all your advantages and disadvantages, without fear of being rejected. Healthy self-esteem allows us to realize that we do not need to hide our shortcomings in order to be worthy of love and affection. We allow ourselves to be loved as we are, without masks and unnecessary fears. Another cornerstone of self-love is the ability to live in the present moment. Often we find ourselves trapped in the past, reliving events that can no longer be changed, or in anxieties about the future, worrying about what has not yet happened. However, the only reality that we truly possess is the present. When we learn to be fully present in every moment, our relationship with ourselves is transformed. We begin to more deeply understand our emotions, needs, and everything that surrounds us. We begin to enjoy simple pleasures more vividly, appreciating moments of happiness without diminishing their significance due to their fleeting nature. Practicing gratitude is one of the most effective ways to strengthen self-love through present moment awareness. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we can start acknowledging all the good that already exists in our lives. This isn't about settling for less or abandoning aspirations for improvement, but about finding beauty in what is already a part of our existence. Sometimes it is difficult for us to discern positive moments because we are accustomed to concentrating on the negative. But when we begin to train our minds to notice small, everyday joys, a warm ray of sunshine, a meaningful conversation, a sincere smile, moments of peace, our perception of the world changes. Gratitude reminds us that our life is already valuable as it is, and that we do not need to achieve unattainable perfection to feel complete. Self-love is also evident in our ability to experience joy and pleasure, not postponing them for later. Often we set a condition: once I achieve success, become slimmer, smarter, more productive, then I will enjoy life. But happiness is not an end goal, but a precious experience available here and now. Do not wait for ideal circumstances to allow yourself enjoyment. Allow yourself to dance for no reason, laugh heartily, savor every moment without guilt. Understanding that pleasure is not an excess, but a basic need, allows us to treat it as an integral part of our well-being. It is equally important to listen to your inner voice, especially in difficult times. We all face challenges, doubts in our abilities, a feeling of stagnation. However, how we experience these moments, with despair or with hope, largely depends on our internal dialogue. If our inner critic is harsh and merciless, every obstacle seems like an insurmountable mountain. We begin to tell ourselves, "I will not succeed. I am not good enough. I am always haunted by failures." These phrases are a manifestation of self-loathing, and they directly affect our lives. The brain, like a sponge, absorbs everything we say about ourselves, and these beliefs gradually become our reality. However, by cultivating a compassionate inner voice, we gain much-needed support and strength. We remind ourselves of the inevitability of mistakes, the value of each step taken, and the lack of need to be flawless to recognize our own significance. Instead of self-flagellation for omissions, we can celebrate our achievements. Instead of focusing on failures, we recognize our ability to learn and grow. Our attitude towards ourselves in difficult moments shapes the quality of our internal relationships, and by learning to speak to ourselves with love, patience, and encouragement, we lay a solid foundation for self-esteem. Another cornerstone of self-love is harmony with one's own body. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with messages about our inadequacy, about the need to be slimmer, stronger, younger, and more attractive, it is easy to come into conflict with our own appearance. Many people spend their lives hating their bodies, exhausting them with diets, hiding them under unloved clothes, or punishing them. But you can look at your body from a completely different angle. Instead of perceiving it as an object that must meet imposed standards, we can learn to see it as our home, a means of transportation that allows us to live life to the fullest. Instead of focusing on shortcomings, we can begin to thank our bodies for everything it does for us every day. Breathes, moves, hugs, feels, laughs. Caring for the body with love, not criticism, is an expression of respect for oneself. This implies choosing nutritious food that brings pleasure, physical activity that brings joy, sufficient rest, and treating oneself with care as a loved one. This is not about chasing an unattainable ideal, but about honoring the relationship with oneself in every decision made. Manifestations of self-love are also reflected in the ability to build personal boundaries. Often, saying the cherished no is not easy, because we are driven by the fear of upsetting others or facing rejection. However, by putting other people's interests above our own, we risk ending up in a state of emotional burnout, experiencing disappointment and resentment. Mastering the art of saying no without feeling guilty is a genuine act of self-love. This is a recognition of the value of our time and energy, an awareness that we are not obligated to unconditionally fulfill all requests. This is allowing ourselves to prioritize our own needs, respect personal boundaries, without feeling remorse for supposedly betraying someone else's expectations. It's important to understand that boundaries aren't impenetrable walls erected for isolation, but rather bridges that allow us to build healthier and more genuine relationships. By setting boundaries with love and clarity, we communicate to those around us the rules for how we should be treated. When we respect our own boundaries, we send a powerful signal to ourselves that our emotional well-being is of paramount importance.